everybody. Thank you for being here. I'm Tonya Mantooth. I'm the Executive and Artistic Director. So thank you for coming out. I'm so excited about this panel because, you know, for me, I'm also a producer and filmmaker, so it's so important to really give the women in the industry a chance to talk about what they're working on, what they're doing, how they're doing it differently, and really kind of what the new footprint is for women moving forward in entertainment. And I think that we've got a really extraordinary group of women. So I want to just let everybody know we do have obviously some snacks on the table. We've got some waters and LaCroix back there. The bar's open if you want that. So make yourself comfortable. And I want to introduce the moderator for the panel. Scott Mantz. He's been a good friend of the festival for many years. So I had a lot of people say, well, why are you letting a man moderate the women's panel?
He has a lot of humanity.
And what I said was, you know what, I don't know a man who champions women more than Scott does. So he is such a good friend. And he's been the entertainment reporter for Access Hollywood for 20 years. 17 years, long time. So he brings with it just a great insight in the industry. So let me introduce you to Scott Mantz.
Yeah.
Thank you, Tonya. You know, I was going to say what I said last night at the Variety Awards Gala, is that this is my 5th year here in San Diego at the film festival. And I love coming down here. The movies are great. The festival is growing. Tonya and Dale are just lovely people to work with and to get more involved year after year. It's just a great thing. And to meet filmmakers in front of the camera, behind the camera, distributors, executives in an industry that is growing and changing. I really wanted to moderate today's panel, Unstoppable Women. So the first thing I would like to say before we start today's panel on Unstoppable Women is, I'm sorry. Thank you, I've been waiting all day for that joke. But I would love to bring up to the stage our panel. First guest, first panelist, she is a distributor, former distributor at Broad Green Pictures and has an incredible resume in the business that she's going to talk about. Please welcome Jacqueline Richardson. And two wonderful filmmakers I met on the red carpet last night. First, she has a film here called Butterfly Cots. Yes, please welcome Jess Jacobs. And then also met on the carpet last night, telling a very personal story at this film festival. Please welcome Frida Ferrel. Okay, well, first of all, first question is, it's kind of a loaded one, is when all the years that I've been covering the business, and this actually goes back 26 years, even before I was with Access Hollywood, I've never seen this groundswell of change in front of and behind the camera for women in film. So I just want to start with you, Jacqueline, just to say, like, what are the immediate sort of like changes that you've seen in the last couple of years? It's a step in the right direction.
Okay, so at Broad Green Pictures, I was there starting in 2014, and we brought on Matt Alvarez, who worked with Cube Vision, which is Ice Cube, and they did everything from Friday all the way through Ride Along. So I had a short conversation with Matt, and I was like, can we get more women directors, more women writers, more women producers? And he said, Jacqueline, you know what, that's exactly what I'm trying to do. But what happens is his assistant makes the phone calls. And when her and I had a conversation, she said, when I call CAA, WME, UTA, whomever, what I do is I ask them for a list of directors, and I specifically say, can you please include women in that group? Because usually what she said, because she came from, I can't remember, Kavanaugh's company, They were there.
Oh, relatively.
Yes, and what she noticed is, and that's where Matt had been, is that she noticed that they were only sending men directors over for consideration on all their films. So when the Broad Green started in 2014, ideally we were trying to bring on more women directors. So I'd say it started there. I think Lucy Walker did come on for one of our documentaries, but I'd say it starts there. And it also starts with us having a passion for what we want to do. I had spoken with just a young girl last night. She's like, well, how do you become a producer? You start with that passion to want to write it or do it or be it, or you have to be a Spike Lee, a Woody Allen. Yeah, Woody Allen. You gotta, sometimes you have to do it all. You have to raise the money yourself. But from the studio point of view, it starts with the core group of getting those development people to say, send me a woman over as well, send me women, send women writers, those, even if they're not all the way at the A-list, like a Nancy Myers probably, but the ones that are showing promise, maybe they've only done TV, maybe they did a Lifetime, but send women over, and I think that it's just something that's quelling and happening now. And so I think that's where it comes from. But it comes from our passions as well as women. Because one thing I noticed, I don't mean to go on, but it's different to get a man's point of view on a story. And Frida and I talked about this last night. We take that same story, we give a woman's perspective, and all of a sudden it's a completely different story. And I love men, I've been married 21 years, but sometimes it's deeper when it's a woman's story. It's richer, and it has more rainbows in it, and it's warmer and it's kinder. Even though they could be shooting and banging and the car chases, right?
Yeah.
But there's like a Wonder Woman kind of thing. But it's just, it has that extra thing, and I think the world needs that. We need a balance between feminine and masculine energy.
Okay, Jess, you are been shaking your head like crazy.
That's how I listen.
Yeah.
I'm always like, my friends, whenever I'm in an audience, they always know that I'm there because I'm like, yes, I'm like very responsive. No, but I'm shaking my head because I think that balance of masculine and feminine energy is exactly what we're looking for. And I think the entertainment industry is such an interesting space because it mirrors what's happening in the rest of the world and in so many other industries so well. Or maybe the rest of the world mirrors Hollywood. You know, I'm not really sure if it's the chicken or the egg, but you know, now that we're seeing this rise in women's power, I think seeing, you know, our first female presidential nominee, I think we're seeing a lot more female CEOs in the corporate space. A lot more women politicians are getting, you know, their time in the sun. And I think that there's that conversation that's happening in Hollywood and, you know, sort of in the rest of the world. And so understanding our part in that, in the industry, I think is really important. And women are so often taught that it's a zero-sum game, that there's one spot for a woman or two spots for women, and if you don't get it, somebody else got it. And so we've been taught to compete with each other. And I think that a lot of what I'm seeing as a young woman in this industry is collaboration. I am partnering with an Emmy-nominated veteran producer in the industry for my company, Invisible Pictures, and that collaboration is such an important part of our business model. I think also it's really important to champion the women who have come before us. A lot of women are not given their due in this industry. We just announced a project recently with Julie Dash, and she was the first Black woman ever to have a feature film in theaters. First of all, it happened in 1991, which is incredibly late. Wow. Like, just beyond astonishing. And second of all, a lot of filmmakers don't know about her because she was really swept under the rug. And so bringing, you know, she's the champion. We're, you know, just honored to be able to support her. And she's such an incredible voice and has so much information and knowledge, and being able to collaborate with women like her too to sort of bring the history into today, to be able to facilitate those conversations, I think is a really important step moving forward too.
Yeah, and for Frida, you know, what did you find that when you were making your film that's here, that because of the support, because of changes that are being made, it was easier for you, or did you still think that it was hard for you being a female filmmaker?
No, I think it's hard to be a female filmmaker. I try to have this 50-50 on set, so I had 50% women, 50% men. I think have a nice balance on set. I was very adamant about that. And I mean, you touched upon like the women's point of view, and I think that's really important because I don't like to use the word victim, but sometimes the women would be the victims of men's doings in whatever it is, whether it's sexuality or if it's, crime. And if we never show from the women's point of view, we'll never know how they feel. We always see it from the man's point of view, which is sad, like how they shoot each other. What about the wife? How is she feeling? How is she feeling at home? We never get to see that. I think it's really important to use the women's point of view and get that female filmmakers out there, female writers, female directors, female producers. It's really, really powerful, and to collaborate together and not compete against each other. It's super important.
One of the things I've really taken a big notice to in the last couple years, like around the time of the Oscar nominations, and definitely this summer when a certain superhero movie opened, is how great will it be where we don't have to have this conversation, where diversity and equality, gender equality it's just the norm, and we can like look back at the early 21st century and be like, remember that? But when you have when you have women like Ava DuVernay, who is not only just her career as a filmmaker is growing in leaps and bounds from film to film, she also has her TV show Queen Sugar, which she has deliberately made a point to hire female directors to direct those episodes.
Julie directed 2 of those episodes, actually.
See, right? And who's the other one? At Sundance this year. Not to bring up another film festival in San Diego, sorry. But it was a great festival because you had the Women's March, which was amazing, and because it was like snowing like crazy. But also you have Zoe Lister-Jones, her film Band-Aid. Zoe Lister-Jones, she wrote a film called Breaking Upwards and another film called Lola Versus. She directed Band-Aid about a couple in they're having marriage problems and they decide to form a band to sing about their problems, which is a great idea. But she made it a point to only hire below-the-line crew made up of women, which I thought was like, this is amazing. But do you think that you talk about like the female perspective and everything and wanting to bring a female perspective to what we see on the screen, what are some of the ways in which we can move towards a point where it is not a conscious thing where we have to hire a certain amount of men and women? Like, what needs to be done so just the equality is just instinct? Who wants to go first? Go, Jess.
Yeah, it's so obvious, that is the place that we're moving towards. That's what we all, well, hopefully everybody in this room, definitely everybody up here, really is hoping for. And I think I hate to like harp on the issue of it, but it's such a deeply entrenched thing. It goes back to like cave times and the ways that women spent their time together, and the ways that men spent their time together, and the systems that have been put in place from that early time, like up until today, really champion a certain kind of energy. And it's why I was nodding so heavily when you said the masculine and the feminine energy thing, because I think we see a lot of people that are elevated and lauded for a certain kind of operation. And I think that it really requires the attention and the intention of people at every level. So, from the development of a project, understanding that authentic storytelling comes from the involvement of the communities that are represented in those narratives, and then to the creative team, saying who's the person that's bringing this story to life. And with Butterfly Caught, it's so interesting because we have 3 female leads and a male filmmaker. Our director was Manny Rodriguez, and he wrote it as well. And he paid such attention to us, and he asked us if things felt real. And he was such a collaborative filmmaker. And I know, Heck yes. And you know, when Tonya and I first sat down to speak about it, she said, I kept checking to see whether or not it was made by a woman because he handled you so delicately. And I felt that the experience was really that of, it didn't matter whether it was a man or a woman because he involved women in the process. And so I think that that's where we're starting now. And that's hopefully where we'll continue to go.
I also think that it needs to start in the film schools, and it also needs to start at film school. It needs to start in the writing room. It needs to start at a very core level. If you are in the entertainment industry at all, you need to teach it to your children, to your daughters, because again, it's intrinsic from man being in charge and women being the helpmate. And so when a story needs to be told, if a child is going to tell a story, it needs to be her story. It's not going to be her brother's story or her dad's story. It's going to be her story. So it's intrinsic, yes, for women to sort of be behind that man that's in charge, but it starts with teaching our children and teaching ourselves to change our point of view and to say, yes, we can do this, we can be in charge. What does that look like? What does that feel like? Well, first of all, you're going to have to know the film industry. You're going to have to know the business. It needs to start at the film festivals where we have these events. So it starts at a very core level, saying that, because this is what I believe, and I think you'll probably agree. Every single one of you has a hit inside of you. It might be a song, it might be a script, it might be a book, it might be a poem, it might be a sonata or a concerto. Everyone in here, including the people that clean this floor, have a hit inside of them. Something so passionate and energetic and wonderful that they really, it's bubbling up at the surface, but for some reason they don't have the confidence to get it out. And a part of it is confidence. Confidence to do your film. Confidence to do your film. Confidence is really key, and women need that more. Don't we need that more? We need that more. We aren't encouraged enough for our own self-fulfillment to make these things happen. So I guarantee you, if I were to take each one of you and give you $25 million and you were to pick all those things you wanted, I guarantee you every single one of you would have a hit, and we would be a multi-billion-dollar group of people.
Can we make that happen right now?
I'm working on it.
You're going to say something.
No, I was going to say that also I think it starts with the funding, because a lot of women don't get funding for their films. For example, in Scandinavia, we have a program that the state helps fund films, and it's gone up from 37% to 60% of women getting funding to do movies, whether it's a filmmaker or a director or a writer. And I think that's really important. I don't know if we have that in America, but that's a good start to have getting the government to come in and make a fund for women. Everyone's shaking their heads like that. Well, let's try and get it done. Let's try finding a women's funding.
I know in other countries they provide housing and the opportunity to, they pay for their rent, and all they do is create art.
Yep.
Just create art. So I don't think that happens here either.
I think it's a representation thing too. You know, I heard you say confidence, and I was thinking, like, where does confidence come from? And I think it's, you know, this idea that we can all tell our own stories, that we can all find that hit within us. It comes from seeing ourselves represented in our complexity on screen. I did an interview recently, and I said something about, you know, the next character that I'm playing for the film that I'm attached to is a complicated woman. And in the press it came out an unlikable woman. And I thought that was so interesting, that complicated women, we still talk about them as if they're unlikable. Right. And so I think if we can, Jo in Butterfly Caught is definitely a complicated woman. And I think if we can find the humanity in these characters, and if we can have brave filmmakers who write them, and they can get funding and distribution, we're gonna start to see women in their full colors on screen. And then we're not gonna have a confidence problem anymore.
What was it like? My favorite story of movies this year was this summer, watching Wonder Woman become the highest grossing movie of 2017. That's awesome. And because I've been reviewing movies for 17 years, and just, you know, I was asked leading up to Wonder Woman a few times, like, why have they made other superhero women up to this point? Like, you know, they tried before with like Aeon Flux and with Catwoman, and you know, nothing really came out of those. And I said, well, wait a minute, that wasn't because they were female superheroes, that's because they were just not very good movies. But make a good film and people will come. And they came out in droves, and it was, you know, I kept tweeting every week about Patty Jenkins, and she kept retweeting me, which was awesome. But I mean, how great was it to see, like, be like, finally, ha.
Well, not just women, I'm sorry, Frida, but
No.
women that were of age, right? Older women.
Right.
Yeah, they looked so awesome. They were muscular and they were fine and they were super, but they were not young. And it was awesome to see. It was awesome to see. That's what I want to say about that. Just awesome. Of all varieties.
I just want to, that I came to Hollywood about 12 years ago, and my agent at the time was talking about Wonder Woman. Oh, they're going to make Wonder Woman, and they're waiting for the funding, and then a year later they didn't get the funding, and they're not going to make Wonder Woman, and here we are, 12 years later, and they got the funding, and they're making it. So something has changed in Hollywood, a little bit. And if we can just push that even
It was that
further.
eclipse that happened.
I think the other thing is, you know, we're relying on comic books that were written however long ago, and there actually just aren't that many women superheroes that were written. So Brie Larson playing Captain Marvel, I think, is like bada bing, bada boom. Like, that's what we're looking for. And you know, I went to this panel like last year at some point, and it was about female leaders of countries, and they played this what's it called, like a projection-y video thing about like a short documentary about all the female leaders that had ever been elected or put in power in any country. And somebody like Maggie Thatcher comes up, and somebody in the audience afterwards, you know, during the talk back, asked a question like, should I, you know, why should I have to laud Maggie Thatcher just because she's a woman? And the panelists responded saying, when there are as many problematic female leaders as there are male leaders, we can have this conversation. And I think talking about, you know, a movie like Catwoman and being like, oh, it just wasn't that good of a movie, what we're really looking for is that that's okay. You know, like, we don't want to say like, oh, well, a woman-led film that didn't make as much money, like, I guess we should stop making movies about women.
Well, I
You
say
know?
at that point, okay, but leading up to Wonder Woman, like, people were asking me, like, what if Wonder Woman it's a bad movie? What if it's like, there was so much riding on this movie. It was unfair. And, you know, fortunately, okay, great, it worked out. The movie was great. It made a lot of money. Everything worked out. But it was like people were waiting for it to fail because it was directed by a woman. It was not just about a female superhero, but it was a big budget movie directed by a woman. I thought, this is really not fair.
A woman can't have control over that much, right?
No, yeah, exactly. Like, she can't handle it. Why? It was like insulting to a man. But it did well, so we're good.
Well, and it did well in 2017, you know, but you're like all of these movies beforehand that it's such an interesting, complicated thing to be talking about. Just as far as like to what standard do we hold certain, you know, minorities, and women aren't even a minority, which is like what's so kind of crazy, but I guess maybe marginalized people. We hold them to this standard. And then, you know, you have Girls Trip, you have Hidden Figures, you have Get Out, if we're talking about people of color, you know, and like these movies are just breaking records all over the place in a summer that was, I think, like 16% down in the box office this summer. And it's like, but these movies are breaking records. And so.
But men are the ones that greenlight them, though. Remember, the men are still in charge of the finances.
Right.
They still control whether it's Warner Brothers, Sony, whether it's, like right now I'm in a multi-million-dollar contract situation. I haven't signed the deal memo yet. Everybody pray. If you don't pray, just send me some or something, because this is a multi-million-dollar deal, and it's basically focused on portraying positive images of women, from the writing, from the directing, from the whole story. But men are in charge of these green lights most of the time, unless you raise it yourself. And usually you're still getting it from a male funder. So I want everybody to start thinking, if you want to make a film, in terms of how to command those finances, how to get that money, you're going to have to be convincing in order to talk somebody into doing your story. And I do think that this is an issue, and I want to point out Lena right there. Because Lena, when I met Lena, she is complicated. She's a go-getter, she's positive, you can tell that nothing's going to stop her. In fact, she should be sitting up here as well. But what I notice is a lot of men don't like those kind of women. They don't like women that are complicated and pushy and won't take no for an answer. But I'm that same kind of way. I'm the same way. I won't take no for an answer. And I just want to say, I have been fired so many times. I cannot tell you. And every time I got fired, I was like, oh my gosh, what have I done wrong? I go in and they're like, you're not doing anything wrong. We're just replacing you. You know, we're eliminating your position. And I never could understand it. The reason why they did that is because I'm supposed to be here. I'm not supposed to just be an executive in a company. I'm supposed to be helping to run it. I'm supposed to help other funders. I'm supposed to be doing more. So as my positions were, I realized that I'm supposed to be doing more. And I think it was Joan Rivers who said she got fired from every job she had. But look where she wound up, right? Well, her whole career, right? And she was 80 at that time, so she accomplished a lot. So I just want to finish by saying that financing is important.
But so if the men are sort of still writing the checks at the big places, how do filmmakers like both of you go around that? And you both have movies here, and they're independent films, and they're both very personal stories, and you're here. It's right up there on the screen. I mean, especially I know your story. Tell us about the film and why it was personal.
Okay, my film is called Selling Isabel. It's showing tomorrow and Sunday at 5 p.m. Thank you. It's personal because it's about sex trafficking. It's based on true events, and it's based on my own story. So they say write what you know, and I thought, okay, I will. But yeah, talking about confidence, I didn't have the confidence to talk about it even for 10 years. I didn't say a word to anyone for 10 years. My mom and no one else, my husband. And then when I went to make a film 6 years ago, it took me that long to make it. Yeah, independent filmmaking, no money. So I didn't want to make a film about that, but I was pushed. My husband sort of pushed me and said, why don't you do it to help other women? And with that in mind, I could go out and talk about the story. I could say what happened to me. I could be that honest and open and vulnerable, because I'm thinking, if I can just help one woman to not get into my situation, my job is done. So I went ahead and find the financing myself from private funders in Sweden, and did the movie, produced it, co-wrote it, helped editing, fixed the music. I sat through the whole post-production, only really because I didn't have the money to pay someone else. So I've learned so much about filmmaking. Yeah. Thank you.
Now, did your cast and crew know that this movie was so personal?
No, I didn't tell anyone on set apart from the director, who's sitting over there, fabulous man, Rudolf Weitendorf. He was the only one, and my producing partner, who knew the truth, and no one else of the 50 to sometimes 65 people we had on set knew anything. Not even the DP, nobody.
Why?
I thought it felt safer for me that nobody knew the truth and they wouldn't victimize me. I didn't want to be a victim. I'm not a victim. I'm a survivor. I got out.
Right, you're a
so
survivor.
I don't want to be a victim.
Right.
And I would have been on set. They would, oh, I'm so sorry. But I don't want to have that. I'm out. I'm done. And I'm taking the worst thing that happened in my life and I'm making the best I can do with it.
Talk about confidence. Confidence goes hand in hand with passion, I think. And my favorite movie of last year, the movie that won Best Picture for about 90 seconds, La La Land. The line that I keep quoting from that film is, people love what other people are passionate about. And I think that's true. And I mean, you're very passionate about the careers that you've taken on and making your films. Same with you. I mean, your film is personal, and it's also, you're wearing a lot of hats as you're moving forward. So what were some of your inspirations to go off in the directions that you're on?
story.
So, I had a really good year in 2016. And I was working as an actor, and things were starting to go, really well and take off, and I was in the place that I always wanted to be. And I remember waking up one day and looking around and feeling really unhappy. I was like, I wonder why that is. Like, I sort of have everything that I've wanted. I'm in this position that I want to be in. I'm up for like the best roles in network television shows, and I'm meeting with like the coolest people in the industry, and what's up? And I got a set of sides and a script from my agent, I think maybe a day or two later, and I was reading through it, and I was like, this woman is not in charge of her own life. This woman is a passive recipient of the world around her. She is not an active participant in it. And I sort of thought back to a lot of the other things that I'd been going out for recently and realized that was a theme, that I was seeing a lot of women at the top of the highest budget things, and that they were creating an Alice in Wonderland situation where there was a woman that was walking through the world, and they were saying, well, it's female-driven content. You're like, kind of. I guess she's there, but she's really just a skeleton of a human being. And I was putting my heart and my soul into these characters that were not full people, and so I was not fulfilled. And then the election happened, and yes, oh God is absolutely right. Because it's something that we thought, at least I thought we had passed. We had come past. And I think the double standard became so obvious to me in that November 8th evening into the early morning. And I realized that enough was enough, and that I had to do something about it. And I had actually already been in conversation with my now producing partner about partnering on a project by project basis. And we had a conversation in late November in which we basically sat down and we're both like, I really like you. And I really want to work with you. And then it became really apparent the responsibility of media to represent women in their full capacities. And so, I have this theory that the movie theaters are the last place, so we still leave politics at the door. We internalize messages in the movies without really realizing what they are, without maybe questioning them all the time. And so the way that we exist in the world, I think, is such a reflection of the way that we see ourselves and the way that we see other people in the cinema and on the big and small screens. And so Audrey and I really prioritize authentic storytelling and making sure that people are a part of the process of telling their own stories. Does that answer the question?
Yeah.
I think
a few questions. So
yeah.
Good. In terms of as you've all embarked on your different careers, your different paths, what's along the way, working with filmmakers, working with colleagues, friends, whatever, what's maybe the best piece of advice you got from someone that you said noted in you? It's something that stays with you, that stayed with you moving forward from that moment. Mine was watch your back, and that's unfortunately true.
I think mine was don't sit back and wait for it to happen.
Yeah.
It's just not going to happen. You have to get out and do it yourself. Whether you are a woman or a man, you have to get up and do it yourself. And I think especially if you're a woman, you have to get out and work twice as hard. And if you're willing to do that, it's going to happen.
There's so much good advice that I've gotten over the years. I think my acting coach told me one time to check in with who's running your life. It's really easy to get bogged down and to get upset by the way that other people are treating you or things that you think are unfair. And I remember we were sitting on Skype one time when I was in New York and he was in California, and we were dealing with it. It was actually a personal thing, but it really goes to work too. And he was like, who are you letting drive you? Is it you or is it other people around you? And so I guess I would say that the advice would be to, no matter what the preconceived notions are or whatever the stereotypes are, just do it anyway.
And create your own opportunities, which is what you're talking about. Don't wait for things to happen. Nothing's going to land on your lap. If it does, you're really lucky.
Yeah.
And that stereotypes are perpetuated by our willingness to let them have power over us.
That's true.
say, for me, it's maybe being a Capricorn, I'm all about the money. I'm all about the money. But money is just money, and money is stored energy, right? But it's what you do with that money that's really important. It's the story that you tell. So that comes back to your passion. What is your passion, Jacqueline? What is that you want to do? You want to make great movies. You want to tell great stories. I have to tell a story, and I'm going to note Scott on this, that gets people in the theater. You cannot watch it on a phone. You cannot watch it on an iPad. You want to go in the theater and see that movie because it's such a passion and a joy and a love that it gets people in the theater. So I would say that I don't consider myself to be male, female, whatever. I am an entity. I am a spirit. I am an energy. I don't classify myself as African American. I don't classify myself as female. I am an energy force. I am a force of nature. And I'm a passionate person, and I can get this done. Somebody is going to give me the money. Somebody's going to tell me yes. Why? Because I'm willing it. I'm passionate. I'm confident that I can get it done. But you must have a vision of it. If you don't have a vision, then you will just go with the waves of the ocean. It will just take you wherever, but you have to be able to go. You need, what's that thing? A rudder. You need a rudder to be able to guide yourself where you want to go. So I'd say, you have to be, don't consider yourself, I'm a woman filmmaker. You can say it on the outside, but on the inside, you are an entity. You are a nature, you are a force of nature. You are in this trillion, think how many trillions of galaxies they are. And you have that force to make that film that's in your heart. Make it, do it. You can make it happen. I know I've seen it happen. But every now and then I have to tell you, I look in the mirror and I'm like, oh my God, I'm a black person. Because every now and then I forget. I just forget. I don't think about it because I wasn't raised that way. I was raised that you are a person, everybody's equal, you know what I'm saying. But every now and then I'm like, oh, that's right, I'm brown skinned, you know. So I don't consider myself a woman in that regard. I'm a filmmaker.
Yeah, just the filmmaker.
It's going to be on the back burner, but don't make that the thing. I'm a filmmaker trying to make a movie, and I'm a woman, and you know what I mean. Even though it is a part of our world, but I'm just saying that girded, that thing that's at the base of your spine, that kundalini, if anybody knows what that is, pull that up all the way through your survival to the top of of that spiritual thing that you have up here to get that thing made. And women are spiritual, they know what we're talking about, and they're complicated. And men are too. And men are too.
I'm pretty spiritual.
You are. Women are more complicated, though, in my opinion. As Dr. Laura said, if you give a man a sandwich, don't nag him, and give him sex, he's going to be fine.
Truth.
Women are going to need a whole lot more than that.
Oh yeah.
Including diamonds. Okay.
I want to open up to the audience. We have a great crowd. Before I do, I just, you know, the takeaway that I get from everyone who's really just put the blood, sweat, and the tears to do anything, especially make movies, is, like we said, to create your own opportunities, to stay focused, too. I think to not get distracted by, especially in the age of social media, look at what everyone else is doing, and then feeling like, oh, I'm not doing enough. Like, what I want to know, like, when you do reach those moments, I mean, you talk about letting go from all these jobs and took 6 years to make a movie, like, when you get to moments where you do feel a little defeated, like, how do you pick yourself up again? Is there something, or it's like maybe you work out? I don't know, whatever it is, how do you turn it back around so you get back on track?
Just keep that vision, what that original vision was. You just have to keep holding on to that. That's what I go back to. But I'm good at visualizing. Everybody's not good at that. Some people are good at writing. Some people have to do. I can actually visualize it and get like a rush from it. You know what I mean? I can see the whole big picture. So that's what I do. I keep that vision alive. I just keep renewing it over and over. We have to keep renewing ourselves, right?
Yeah.
Just like that losing that shell and the butterfly comes out. You have to just keep renewing yourself, shedding the old skin, you know, and coming out new again. You just have to keep holding on to that. That's what I do. But
Jess?
You know, we talked up here about how women have to work twice as hard, and you know, we have to do twice as much and be twice as strong and twice as confident. And I think that sometimes means that we think that we have to do twice as much, and we only have 24 hours in a day. We have all the same amount of time. And so, you know, I find that the times when I get really bogged down or when I feel like I don't have the energy to keep going, it's because I've been running myself ragged, thinking that that's what I have to do to get ahead. And so often it's about self-care, which maybe is a little bit cliche, but it's just so real. I think that women don't, it's so easy for women not to take good care of themselves when we are ambitious and when we're hungry. It's easy to get caught up in the fight. And so I think taking those moments to take a bath or to see your friends or to be in community.
The most important thing is, okay, so everybody deals with stresses here, right? Everything. Work, kids, jobs, this, that, somebody died, somebody was born, whatever. A party you gotta plan. If you eat well, and you sleep well, and you exercise, you can handle any kind of stress.
That's the
Any
truth.
kind of, probably should be a little meditation in there, a little
Transcendental meditation. I just started doing
to
that.
wake up and kind of center yourself. But if you have those, you can deal with anything. You can deal with any stress. Take one of those out and you're in trouble. You're sick, you're in the hospital, you're not feeling well, your immune system's compromised. So it is important for us to take care of ourselves, because usually we are taking care of more than just ourselves. We're taking care of parents and wives and husbands and children and dogs and cats. And so it's important for us to take care of. Self-care is so important.
And staying in community with it.
Yes, with one another. Men and women, though. Men and women.
I have to say, running is my salvation. Okay, who's got a question? Yes. Oh, yes. What's your thing?
Oh, yeah, that's right.
What's your thing?
What's my thing? Quick shot of vodka, and then keep going. A Swedish lightning.
So everything you said, with the occasional vodka or Johnny Black on the rocks. So, yes, right, yes.
I understand the hero in storytelling, I understand the action hero, and I understand how wonderful Wonder Woman was. But about 10 years ago at Comic-Con, at a seminar on the female action hero, I asked a question. And it was, why does the female have to be like the male action hero? And the point I made was, there was a movie in the 60s where a woman saved her husband and children against the worst evil the world had known, and she did it with a guitar. It was The Sound of Music.
Oh.
So why can't we have female heroes who have a different type of action? Why do we have them?
I think,
Turning that to you, ladies.
I mean, I think that it goes back to what I said something at the beginning about the system. It's like even our genres, even the way that we genre our movies is from a male point of view. So an action movie looks a certain way. An action movie, somebody is saving the world, and so they're doing it in a certain kind of way with a certain kind of violence. There was a movie, Atomic Blonde, that came out this year, and it was, I had a couple of friends, I actually have to apologize and say that I didn't see it, so I can't speak to it terribly intelligently, but I did have friends that came back seeing it and said I had to leave the theater early because it was so violent. And the only thing that I could think of was, are they compensating for the fact that it's a woman in an action movie?
Well, one of the things I noticed right off the bat when I saw Wonder Woman for the first time was, yeah, she's an action hero and all that stuff, a comic book hero, but there was a heart. The movie had a big heart, and she was vulnerable. You know, there was a soft, like, loving side to her that was different from Atomic Blonde and the other superheroes. But I love that question. I'm never going to watch The Sound of Music the same way again now.
What we
Thank
need
you
is
for
we
that.
need a new genre. Is what we need.
Yes,
We need a
absolutely.
new genre, and I don't know. We're gonna have to figure out what that is. We got to come up with a name.
Yeah, we'll be in community about it.
It's not by chance that the two things I read about on TV, the autistic smart doctor, the good doctor, and the little boy
Sherlock, that these are boys, men. Why can't one of them be a woman or a girl?
That is the question.
That is the question. Right back here, there's a question. Right back there. Blue shirt. Hang on. Mic is coming. Wait for the mic so we can all hear you. And there you go.
Hi, thank you for being here. My point of view is that if we as individuals, men, women, somewhere on the fluid scale, are as authentic to ourselves as possible, that is the most powerful thing. I only have my story. I'm the only one with my perspective on my story. This gentleman has his perspective on how we came to this couch. It doesn't matter what the story is. But again, like with the new genres, there are things in language that can kind of stack the deck for you, against you. And I'm speaking with a big umbrella right here. Women generally are very communally oriented. We connect, we talk, we cooperate, and that in another way can be called glad-handing or schmoozing or networking. And sometimes I hate word networking. But if it's just kind of spun a different way, there are ways that we can get the resources, funding, collaborators, whatever it is, if we just kind of go with what we do naturally. And it's beyond powerful. And so I don't necessarily want to fit into the male model. I don't want to try and be the female superhero. I love that Sound of Music comment also. That's amazing. But just to kind of break that new ground and tell your story. And if it's not interesting enough, tell another story. Find someone's story that you're interested in, and we're like, okay, let's do that one. And that's what I have to say.
Is there a question with that?
Not really. I just kind of want more than like Women Are Awesome 101. I want to go levels deeper, because we all know that. And that is not excluding, Men Are Awesome 101, that's also a given.
Okay, you know what, on that note, okay, there was a movie that came out last year called Miss Sloane. Did you see it? Anyone see it? Okay. Jessica Chastain. That is a great movie. Excellent movie, Tonya. Miss Sloane, Jessica Chastain plays a lobbyist in Washington, D.C., lobbying for gun control. So she's out for a good cause. But the way she goes about it, she's ruthless, she is cutthroat, and I, some other colleagues who I saw the movie with were like, man, I didn't like her character at all.
What did I say about women?
No, it's
And I
unlikable.
said, what if it was a man?
Yeah.
What if that character was Mr.
Did you
Sloan?
see Equity?
Yes.
Men don't
Very
like
similar.
women like that usually. They don't, but we like it. We want to see a woman in action.
Well, and I think too,
And that's
it's,
just one version too. Yeah.
yeah, so Audrey and I, for our company, we talk about this a lot, because we don't want to be a female-run company. We want to be a cute, I was going to swear, but I won't do it. A badass company, a badass production company operating in Hollywood at a very high level. And it doesn't mean that we run our company like men do. I tell our assistant and Audrey, I love you all the time when I hang up the phone. And sometimes I've told male, counterparts in other companies that, and they sort of like giggle and chuckle, and they're like, oh, it's cute. And I'm like, it's cute until our movies are making more money than yours at the box office, but okay.
Yeah. Who's next? Yes, question right over here.
Like I'm sure everybody in the room, in my good life, I've had a lot of people that were great role models. And in the beginning, particularly as it relates to women, I'd have to first mention a really strong, independent, single mom who raised me. And that was important. But of another person who had a big influence about how I think about and interact with women was very early, as a teenager, in a job that I had working in the inner city, actually in Boys and Girls Club in Chicago and Willowbrook, Belgrade, places like that. We were integrating women into the job, and my boss, who was a male, said if there was an interaction or a problem that looked like it might become physical, our job was not to go and interrupt and take over from that woman that was dealing with that situation, but to go stand by her and support her, not take away her authority, but just support her. And that's, I thought, was a good experience to help build my approach to working with women and my life in general. But I ask you, the question is, so what would you like of men as filmmakers, as actors, what would you like of the men in the audience and the men in the industry? What are the one or two top things they could do to make your careers and your lives achieve what they should?
Sign that check. That's fine.
Okay, that's a good one. What's something that men in positions of power can do to make this a little bit easier?
I mean, yeah, sure, sign the check, of course. Not step on us. Like, if we have thoughts in the way we want to do things, not go in and take over and control it, and just letting us be. And I think that mix between having men and women, it's a nice energy flow. If you have, I mean, it's going to be the same. If you have a whole room of women, like, just trying to make a movie, that's going to be complicated too. You have to have the mix. So allowing us to have the mix and work with that and not trying to just take over and, and control.
I'm really lucky to have been raised by a father who is an incredible feminist, and anything I ever wanted to do or anything we were ever going to do as a family, he asked my opinion and he respected it. And I think that I grew up with a really strong sense of self-worth from that. And I would say that in the industry, the thing that I see happening most is that men think that they have to teach women something.
Mansplaining.
It's sure mansplaining, and also the sort of the less like sort of funny version of that, of like, you know, really being very patronizing and offering, you know, using the words like educate and using the words like, well, you have, you know, like whatever they are that sort of say like you don't really know what you're talking about. And the more men in the industry and around the world that are willing to let women be right, sometimes the better off I think we're all gonna be.
I also agree with this gentleman that if there are men out there that are, and those men are probably not in the room, but if they will stand and back you and say, not just sign for you, but you know, the Steven Spielbergs and the Finchers and the whoever, the writers, stand behind a woman, promote a woman's career, help her get started. When you see she has the ideas, usually sometimes the ideas are better than yours, and so they can squash that because it's a better idea, it's a better thought, or they steal it. So I say if those men can stand behind a woman, which it's going to take a lot of confidence for a man to do that, you know, to stand back and let that woman shine. If he can do that, then we are well on our way to this conversation not even be necessary in the next couple of years.
I mean, that's quite it's really deeply rooted, like you started to talk about the caves before, but like even now in our society, how many relationships, marriages do you know where the woman is the star of the relationship? She is the one working hard, the man is helping out from behind. Not many. It also goes down to who's paid more. So if you say, we need to support the family, he needs to work because he's going to get more money for the same job than I am. So that we need to start on an even deeper level than just thinking, go out and do it. It's like things need to change significantly.
And I think also I would request the speaking up. I think the fact that you're moderating this panel is actually completely wonderful because allyship is nice, but advocacy is going to create change.
Yeah.
You know, in terms of, to answer your question, I like when you have someone like Paul Feig, who did Bridesmaids, and J.J. Abrams has been very, very vocal with championing women in all areas of the business. Yeah, advocacy is a very, very big portion to a much bigger picture. But before we bring this to a close, I just gotta ask, we are at a film festival. What are your favorite movies of all time? Go. Favorite movie of all time. I just want to know. It's my favorite question. It's always my icebreaker at a party.
Okay.
Your favorite movie of all time.
It's gotta be Casablanca.
Okay. Casablanca's a good one.
When Harry Met Sally.
Oh, that's a great one. I'll have what she's having. What's yours?
The Elephant Man.
Elephant Man. Wow. Why the Elephant Man?
Because it's beautiful. It's a strong, sad story, and I've seen it so many times, and every time I cry just as much.
Wow.
There was a reference to Elephant Man last night, wasn't there?
It was, yeah.
Somebody referenced it last
It was the
night.
guy who thought when he was going to see it that it was a superhero movie.
Oh, that's right.
Superman, Elephant Man.
So Patrick.
But,
Well, ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much. Oh, you have a question? Yeah? Why not? Here, take my mic.
Thank you. I have two things. First a comment and then a question. What I'm hearing from this panel about funding, about being a woman,
Yes.
about just about every issue you have mentioned, I have heard for more than 30 years. And I'm an architect. And if you stop and think, it's a very similar thing. I do projects. I do a building. You do a film. And stop and think of how many buildings you know that were done by women, or that you've ever worked with a architect who is a woman. So you can understand, you know, there's that marvelous movie, The Fountainhead. We don't look like Gary Cooper or whoever it was. And people have that image. That's part of, I think, the issue. I attended a panel many, many years ago, a similar kind of issues, and a very interesting point was made. They said, people like to hire people that look like themselves. So that man with the money wants to hire another guy in that Armani suit or whatever. Okay. That's my comment. My question is, because I've been involved also very much in theater, I know that there are some marvelous female writers. I don't know if you know the work of Sarah Rule. Have they been approached for writing in the film? I mean, there's a marvelous, marvelous group of women out there who write, I wouldn't say particularly feminine things, but it's that feminine approach. I would suggest that more is reached out to the female writers of theater.
We actually have a digital series that we're working on, and we have called numerous female playwrights to come on board to start to do that work. We have a female writer for 2 of the films that are coming up. I think Sarah Rule is brilliant. Dominique Morceau is another playwright who's incredibly stunning. I think she just had a play at the La Jolla Playhouse, actually, or it's coming up. I totally agree with you. And I think that playwrights are also totally underutilized because they're niched into a very certain kind of media. And playwrights have such a beautiful sense of structure and character and story, and bringing that into filmmaking, I'm 100% with you.
Are you familiar with the play Dead Man's
Cell phone. I am, it's brilliant.
Dead Man's Cell Phone? What is that?
It's hilarious. It's a Sarah Rule play. It follows a number. I saw it when I was in high school, up in LA. But it follows a number of characters, and it's very funny. There's this monologue at the beginning of the second act, and the thing that I just remember the actor standing on stage saying lobster bisque over and over, and you're sitting in an audience and you're like, what are we talking about? And it doesn't matter, and you've she's just done a beautiful job creating a sense of space and story.
Thank you for that. Jacqueline, Jess, Frida, thank you so much for today's panel, and keep the conversation going. Thank you so much.
Thank you.